Good morning and welcome to another edition of Our Town here on 94.9 and 99.1 The River. My name is Darren Swenson. Our Town, as always, brought to you by Decorah Bank and Trust. Three guests on the program this morning. Decorah School Superintendent Tim Cronin will also talk to Mandy Halverson with the Waukon Chamber. She will discuss the St. Patrick's Day celebration coming up this Sunday in Waukon. But first things first, we will talk about the current special traffic enforcement program going on coinciding with St. Patrick's Day. Our first guest this morning will be Trevor Thomas with the Decorah Police Department. That conversation starts now. This is Our Town. It's brought to you by Decorah Bank and Trust, and you're listening to it on 94.9 and 99.1 The River. Having a conversation this morning with Trevor Thomas. He is with the Decorah Police Department, and right now the police department and other law enforcement entities are under a special traffic enforcement program or a STEP program. And explain what a STEP program is, first of all, Trevor.
So the STEP program is something that the Governor Traffic Safety Bureau puts on. They work with local law enforcement around the state to get officers out and about and focusing on traffic safety. It's a grant. We apply for grants or funding to better equip ourselves with equipment. But it's a project that we work with the Governor Traffic Safety Bureau.
And what is the focus of the current special traffic enforcement program?
So the current one that we have going on right now is going to fall over the St. Patrick's Day weekend. That one is the focus is going to be on impaired driving. We really want people to make good decisions. It's a popular weekend for people to get out and celebrate. We want people to get out, celebrate, have a good time this weekend. Our focus is for everybody to get out, have a good time, celebrate, and then get home safely. That's our main focus with it. And the way we do that is we're going to be out and we're going to be patrolling. And we're going to keeping an eye out for impaired drivers because we want people to make it home and make it home safely.
What advice do you give people that want to go out and celebrate St. Patrick's Day this weekend?
Yeah, so our advice is make a plan before you go out. Generally speaking, on weekends like St. Patrick's Day, people consume a higher amount of alcohol than average for an average weekend. And people are more likely to make poor decisions as a result of that increased consumption of alcohol. So what we ask is make a plan before you go. There's taxi services, call friends, call parents, call somebody. Make a plan before you go out. That way you're not out there stranded and don't have a plan to get home safe.
And when you have these special traffic enforcement programs, what do you do with the data collected during these efforts, and how does that help you improve things or help you look at what you do and improve things to better keep the public safe?
So the data that we collect, we use that to try to figure out where our problem areas are, where we end up with more traffic accidents or preventable things that we can try to take care of before accidents or something like that happen. That's our overall goal, is to figure out where our problem is, get out there and be proactive with it and help the public get them home safe before something unfortunate happens. I know in the memo that we sent out last March, in the state of Iowa alone, there were 26 traffic fatalities, and 40% of those, or about 40% of those, happened over the St. Patrick's Day weekend. And that's, something that we don't want to see.
And basically everything we're touching on, a lot of it is preventable based on that stat you just told me. Is that a fair statement?
Right. Because, drinking and driving is obviously the decision that the driver makes. Like I said earlier, when you've consumed some alcohol, your decision you're going to make poor decisions. And that's why I was saying, make a plan before you go out and about, celebrate, have a good time this weekend, but have a plan, have a way to get home. And, that way everybody gets home safe.
Anything else the public needs to know about this weekend's special traffic enforcement program, or anything else Decorah Police wants to pass along to the public, as long as you got the forum this morning?
Not really. Again, like I said, I hope everybody has a really great and happy St. Patrick's Day. We want you to get out, celebrate, visit the local businesses, go out and, go downtown, have a good time. Just make yourself a plan, have a good time and get home safe.
All right, Trevor, we appreciate you taking a few minutes to tell us about this weekend and how to keep yourselves and others as safe as possible with the Special Traffic Enforcement Program. We appreciate you taking the time. More importantly, we appreciate you and everybody else with the Decorah Police Department for what they do to keep our community safe.
Yeah, thanks, Darren, for having me.
Trevor Thomas with the Decorah Police Department. Coming up this Sunday is the annual St. Patrick's Day celebration in Waukon, and here to tell us all about it, Mandy Halverson from the Waukon Chamber. And Mandy, it's an annual event. It's a fun day in Waukon, and this is one of those years where it actually lands on St. Patrick's Day, and that kind of adds to the fun, I'd imagine.
Yes, it does. It's going to be a great day.
Tell us all the activities that will be going on Sunday.
Absolutely. So starting in the morning, we have a pancake breakfast hosted by the Elmwood County Fairgrounds, and that'll be from 8 to noon. It's also a free will donation, but the proceeds are going to go to some new aluminum bleachers for the grandstands. And then you can start lining up for the parade if you're going to have a float after 9 a.m. at WW Dairy. If you're going to have horses and mules, they're at Kroll Ready Mix. And if you're going to have a big rig, say like fire trucks or stuff like that, we ask that you line up at Sweeney Auction Service. So anytime after 9, you guys can start lining up, and the parade will start at 1 p.m. And then after the parade is over, all of the restaurants, bars will have entertainment. So it's anywhere you go, you're going to find something to do, live music, or the Bull Bash down at Green Valley. There will be a shuttle service available starting at 2 p.m. that will do a route starting from downtown, and we'll hit Lids, we'll hit Proverbial Tap Room and Grumpy's, and we'll go out to Green Valley as well and then bring you back to town. So that's a good way for people to get around and be safe at the same time. Also, local food establishments will be having specials. S&D Cafe will be doing corned beef and cabbage, so that's always a good tradition to have on St. Patty's Day. Let's see, Aztec will be open. They're usually closed on Sundays, so you can grab a drink there. AJ Steakhouse and Fiesta will also be having food specials. And then, of course, when you're waiting in line at WW, grab some squeaky cheese curds or some hot chocolate. So they've got food for everybody waiting out there too.
As for the parade itself, what is the parade route this year?
So it will start at WW and it'll come down Rossville Road here to the stoplights. It'll make a left onto West Main Street, go up to our post office and take another left there by First Presbyterian Church, down to the St. Pat's Catholic Church, and then down to Quick Star. And after that, it'll just disperse from there. So your best views are going to be along Rossville Road and here at West Main. So I've also noticed that people start setting up their chairs early. So if you want to get a good spot, make sure to get your blanket and chairs set out where you want to watch the parade from.
And if you want to be a part of the parade with a float or any sort of entry, is there any process to sign up for that, or is it a case of just showing up where you need to?
If you want to tell the Waukon Chamber or Village Farm and Home that you're going to have a float coming, that's great. Just gives us an idea what to anticipate. Otherwise, it will be a first come, first serve for lineup out at WW.
And I'd imagine the entertainment afterwards, probably a good place to look for that entertainment is anything related to the chamber and the local businesses themselves promoting what they're doing after the parade. Is that the best way to do it?
Absolutely. We're going to have posts of every establishment and what they're hosting The Almaquee Economic Development and Tourism has a post up on Facebook as well. And then each business establishment has posted their live entertainment that they're going to have too. So
Anything we're missing, Mandy? Anything else you want to pass on about the celebration coming up on Sunday?
well, we hope to see everybody here. Wear your green, come prepared, and it's going to be a great time.
All right, Mandy, we appreciate you taking a few moments to talk about a annual tradition, an annual day of fun in Waukon, the St. Patrick's Day celebration coming up on Sunday. Thanks for the time and enjoy the weekend in Waukon.
Thanks for having me. You too.
Mandy Halverson from the Waukon Chamber, annual St. Patrick's Day celebration coming up on Sunday. Having our monthly conversation with Decorah School Superintendent Tim Cronin. Quite a few things to discuss on that end of things. And Tim, obviously last week, a fine season of the Decorah boys basketball team came to a close in the state semifinals. Excellent game against Davenport Assumption, but the boys came up just short in that game. From a school district perspective, unlike previous years, you decided to keep class in session on Tuesday and Thursday. What went into that decision?
Okay, I thought you were going to have me break down the game, but now I got to break down the decision not to cancel school.
We'll get to the analysis later.
Okay. Okay. Fantastic season for the boys. Yeah, we looked at last year, kind of walked into the girls making the state tournament, and when I kind of asked around, we were worried about staffing, we were worried about level of education, and so we decided to cancel school last year so people could attend. No matter what decision you make, it comes with its own unique challenges. So we kind of had decided last year, hey, we're just going to have school because, among other things, as pointed out by it, we go to state for lots of things, girls wrestling, boys wrestling, speech, bowling, pick, we've got a high achieving student body. So there's lots of activities and we can't cancel for them all. Track, cross country. Some of those are on weekends. Some of them are afternoons. So yada, 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 we decided to have school. And then at that point in time, it's a matter of, okay, we've got staff who have children playing on, who are closely affiliated with the program, whether they're parents, whether they're sibling. We had somebody who, my brother-in-law is the coach or things like that. So then we just kind of worked about how we were going to cover. And at the same time, we just kind of we were tracking the students that were going to be gone because, quite frankly, and it was awesome. We took 4 pep buses down, and I think we had close to half the high school in Des Moines supporting the boys. So just understand that it was a different strategy this year, kind of based it on not wanting to lose those days of school and the hardship that creates for the elementary school families. Maybe they're not as tied to the high school sports, and those folks, it's tough for them to miss a day. Then the other variable that we didn't have this year, and I'm going to knock on wood when I say it, last year thank you, Darren. Last year we did have quite a few snow days, so one more snow day was probably a tough thing for families. And then this year we've only had 3 weather-related, 2 snow days and 1 heat day, but we've only had 3 weather-related days. So maybe there was some flexibility in the calendar, but we kind of made a decision we were going to stick with. And so I don't think, I guess we'll just hopefully get used to holding school when we perform at state like we have for other things, and just kind of have that be the plan moving forward.
And talking to some people last week when I was in Des Moines, seemingly there's a lot of districts that are going to that kind of mindset of, if you want to go down and support the team, that's a great thing to do. But obviously there are people in the district that it does create hardship for. So just talking to many other people, they're saying many other school districts were having the same thought that you were. Is that what you're reading and talking to other people?
And as much as I've studied what other districts do, I think I might make a correlation. The bigger the district, the less likely they are to cancel school. And the smaller the district, I think you just kind of like, hey, we're going to shut the town down and all go to Des Moines. But it also, I suppose, there's how often are you going? My children graduated from the Linn-Mar School District, and there was years that both the boys and girls teams would go, and it was just kind of like if they had canceled school, they might miss 6 days of school. Well, that is an undue hardship, and you don't want to say, it's tough because you don't know if the team's going to win, but maybe pick a North Linn. They're going every year, and their boys and girls are both doing well. That's a school district down in Linn County, obviously. I think they've probably gotten to a point where I don't even know what they do, but I don't suppose they cancel school anymore because they'd add so much time to the end of the year. So
Nope. That was one
um,
school I was talking about too. So
oh, was it?
yeah.
Oh, okay. So I would just say I heard probably more districts that were in school than were out. But if I had to, if you read me 10 school districts, I would probably go by how large they are and guess that the larger schools probably held school.
Another front, what's the latest on the conference affiliation, Chet?
So the conference affiliation, we've got an official request into the Upper Iowa Conference. They have responded that they're going to review it at their April meeting. And so I think that's coming up the first week in April. Obviously they'll either accept us or not accept us, and we'll make plans after that decision.
Can you make any plans based on what decision before that, based on if they say yes or if they say no?
Well, I don't, I mean, obviously Mr. Riley and I discuss a lot of different what if scenarios. And so we've got some different things ready to go, but until we know, there's a little bit about, you don't want to borrow trouble. You just want to find out what the Upper Iowa does and what their decision is going to be, and work from there. But yeah, do we have things in mind? Sure, but we're not going to execute anything until after we've either been told yes or been told no.
Let's go to the items that were on your school board agenda on Monday night. There was an adoption of the ISL continued participation resolution. Tell us about that.
The instructional support levy, you have different levies that make up your tax rate. And so the instructional support levy is one of those pieces of how we build a school budget. We've had it set at 10% for years. It requires a board resolution. So it expires in 2026. And when you go to budget planning meetings, the first thing they always say is check when it expires, because it's the kind of thing, once it expired, you can't like say, oh, we forgot to renew it kind of thing, and get permission to charge that levy and charge that tax. So you never want to be in a situation where you've forgotten to do it. So Kathy Dietzenbach and I were at the budget meeting, and we had a couple years, but we were allowed to renew it now. So since it was top of mind, it was kind of one of those, let's check a box and move this, get this approved so that we don't have to worry about it.
And that is a levy that doesn't require voter approval, correct?
No, that doesn't require voter approval. There's certain parts of a school budget that do require voter approval. And those are going to be things like the GO bond when you go out to build a new facility, or they added one if you're going to use SAVE, if you're going to borrow against SAVE revenue to do an athletic facility, you now have to have voter approval for that. And that's kind of a new thing that happened. Actually, I think it kind of coincided with when Linn-Mar built their swimming pool. I don't know if it was related or not, but it's a pretty fancy pool. So what the state said with that was, hey, we're going to give you this 1 cent sales tax penny, and you're going to use it for your facilities. But if you're going to direct that toward an athletic facility, that should have voter approval versus you just being allowed to do it. So as kind of a comparison, the plan for Waterloo, where they're looking at doing the one high school facility and they're not needing to do a voter approval on that, that's because they're planning to use SAVE and PEPAL funds for that. But they don't have to go get voter because, of course, that's not an athletic only facility. They're talking about just building a new high school.
And it looks like you're going to be doing some work on the middle school roof. Why is this project necessary, and when will that work be done?
So the middle school roof, that is a problem we've had for a few years, well, actually for a long time. We installed a special roof type called an Armor Light roof. You're more than welcome to Google that. It's a thin layer of like metal, almost like aluminum rough, and it just hasn't performed very well for us. We've tried some things in the past to stopgap it, but we still have lots of leaks on that roof. And rather than continue to throw good money at bad, we've decided to let's just get this replaced. And so that was kind of one of my charges to the board was no matter what we do, we're going to get that roof replaced because, we've done some other really nice upgrades in the district, but roof would be one of those must-dos in my mind. And we've kind of put it off longer, any kind of leaks you get, it just, your potential for causing problems. So we normally you would do a roof in sections, and why lots of districts do that is for budgeting purposes, so you can do a smaller amount. And the state law requires you to go hire an architect if you're over the threshold. It used to be $139,000. It just changed. I think it's up to $179,000. But anytime you do a project that's over the threshold, you have to hire an engineer and an architect to plan it. And so among other things, districts kind of look at, okay, well, I'll do a section of this roof and it'll be $100,000. And then next year I'll do $100,000. And maybe in their facility budget for Pepple and Save, they would just budget $100,000 replacement a little at a time. Well, we had a specialized roof at the middle school, so you couldn't do just sections because it wasn't the EPDM kind of black rubber roof. It was a white metal roof. And so we're not going to do it in sections like we might normally do. We're going to do it all at one time because it's not performing well. And we're going to not have kind of what I would call an experimental roof. We're just going to go back to the EPDM roof that has the 20-year guarantee that keeps the water out. The timeline for that's a fun question. So one of the things I had to state last night, I had to state when we met with Shive Hattery, who's the architect we hired, was when can they start construction? And so obviously we want to get this done over the summer. And so you want to give them as much, whoever wins the bid, you want to give them as much time on that roof as possible. So I said that we would start, I think it's May 28th, the Tuesday after Memorial Day. And so clever people out there might realize that now I've said that school will be done by Tuesday, May 28th. So working backwards, we're probably not going to have school on Memorial Day. So we'll do everything in our power to have our last day of school be Friday, May 24th. Now, right now it's Wednesday, May 22nd, and we hope we don't have any weather-related cancellations and we can just keep it at the 22nd. But just keep in mind, if we do have, more than 2 more full days canceled of school, the district's going to get creative to make sure that we're done on time so that we don't have to interrupt that construction timeline.
Do I need to remind you of the April 17th snow day last year?
No, that's why I knocked on wood and I did a lot of qualifiers. But yeah, we did have a snow day April 17th last year. And I distinctly remember, and I was out at the family farm and I got there like in the middle of some snow on Sunday. And I remember thinking like, oh, okay, some snow's coming down. And then I watched the weather and they said we had, I don't know, 6 inches or something. And I went back outside and I was like, oh, I guess, you can't believe you got 6 inches on April 17th. But as I recall, we started that day with a 2-hour delay and I hadn't driven more than I hadn't even made it to Big Canoe Church. And I was like pulled over on the side of the road. And I said, there's no way we're having school because the roads were bad. And yeah, so thanks for bringing that day up.
Well, I'm just trying to get all the information out here as we have these conversations.
And that's why I say we don't think we'll have more snow days, but we certainly could. And, if we would have some kind of bad weather events and have to cancel more than 2 days, just understand the district will really try to stick to having Friday, the 24th be the last day.
You also had some discussion regarding the fiscal year 2025 property tax publication, talked a little budget, all that good stuff last night. I'll ask you this before you break down this year's levy rate. there was a lot of conversations, and there has been a lot of conversations with the city and county governments about the property tax changes that were passed by the state legislature last year, and the headaches that's causing city and government and county government right now. Are those same headaches affecting school districts at all?
Yeah, for sure. So our headache is we have to, we've always published a budget about this time of year. I think the difference is we have to submit it to the auditor. And we're maybe about a month ahead, but we have to submit it to the auditor. So you're going to get a letter with your tax bill for the Decorah School District. And our huge handicap is the state legislature has not set supplemental state aid, or what we call SSA. And so not knowing how much money we're going to get from the state, it's really hard to set a budget, because we kind of have, when we build our budget and we put different money in the levies, they all kind of feed into the overall tax rate. For the last 4 years, we've had a tax rate that's been between $12.35 and $12.40. So we've been pretty consistent, and that's kind of our goal. We know we've got a building project coming up, hopefully in a year or so, and we want to be able to keep our tax rate as flat as possible. So we're kind of building a budget this year, keeping that in mind. But when we put in, we hope 3% SSA, we get I think our tax rate comes down about $12.37, right in the sweet spot. But if we don't get 3%, we put in 2.5%, and then that tax rate goes from 12.37 to maybe 12.44. Well, so it's really hard to, what number should I put in for SSA, not knowing the House has passed 3%, but knowing that the governor has asked for 2.5, knowing that the Senate really hasn't said what they want. So my recommendation to the board, and they went along with it, was to be as conservative as possible. So we set SSA at 0%. Figuring that that's worst case scenario. That drives up the tax rate to $12.55. And again, mind you, our goal is in that $12.35 to $12.40 range. So that's at least 15 to 20 cents higher than we want the tax rate to be. Now, we have to do that now because we have to publish now, because there's a state law, which is the same state, same legislature that hasn't passed SSA. Not that I'm complaining, just pointing out that that's how it is. So you'll get a letter, and that letter will be like, wow, that new guy's raising our taxes 20 cents. But we're not, because two things. As soon as we know SSA, the board can always adjust the overall tax rate down. And so if you watch our board meeting last night, we approved publishing with 0 SSA, with the idea that we'll revisit after SSA is set and have a commensurate tax rate in that $12.35 to $12.40 range. It's not ideal, because if you don't read the press release, if you don't watch the board meeting, if you don't watch this, you're just going to see a 20-cent increase and you're going to be shocked.
So, long story longer, the $12.55 is the maximum you can go. You can't go above that rate. You can go below that rate based on the letter that you're going to be sending out, correct?
The letter we're sending out just kind of explains what I said, and says your tax rate will be $12.55. Our goal is going to be in that $12.35 to $12.40 range. Once we know SSA, again, if SSA is 3%, then the tax rate that we've published is fine, because the levies will generate a $12.37 rate, tax rate. If the tax rate is anywhere lower, then the board's going to have to revisit it. The board does have the power through about June of this year, depending on when SSA is set, to always reconvene and lower the tax rate. So I hesitate to say maximum is $12.55. I mean, we probably could have set a budget higher than $12.55, but with the amounts that we put into the levies and hoping for 3%, and having a target of $12.35 to $12.40, we like the levies where they're at. And again, we're putting these levies together knowing that we're hoping to have a building project in a year where the debt service levy is going to go up, and then we'll draw some of the other levies back down a little bit, so that there's sustainable, as we, again, knock it on wood, work toward an elementary building project.
And you talk about all these state laws and requirements that are put on school districts. Well, state law also says state supplemental aid should be passed within the first 30 days of the legislature too, right?
It's 30 days of legislature, 30 days of the governor's budget. Maybe that's the same thing, but yes, they know that they are not compliant. I did talk to a couple of our local representatives, and the House folks have passed, so we're waiting on the state Senate. But yeah,
And
it should be set by now. Am I surprised that it's not set? No, because this is not the first time in my 10, 11 years as a superintendent that SSA is not set on time,
and
even though it's state law.
yeah, that's the point of the discussion there. And related to the potential building project, where is that conversation? Where is that planning? Where are we at related to that?
We've met with our architect and a facilities committee a couple times. We've looked at our borrowing capacity. We've worked with the Donovan Group on how we need to get information out. One of the things that we had a discussion about was normally facilities group would review and make a recommendation to a board on the need for a school. And we're trying to explain, well, if we would have a meeting and say, hey, we need to build a new John Klein, that would feel like we'd gone back to the future. I don't know. I think this community, I think we need to recognize the work that's been done. And that's one of the things that we've been helping our Donovan Group understand, is just collecting all the board minute discussions. And there's been at least 24 discussions and newspaper articles where we've talked about the need for a John Klein. And so our message will be a little bit atypical in the sense that it may not be as much as the need for a new school, but so it's not going to be the what, but it's maybe the how and the when, that our recommendation with the facility committee. So we meet once a month, and we're doing stuff. We're going to have a website that just gets going this month about Decorah information about the facility, and we'll do a frequently asked questions, because I know I get lots of different recommendations. And one of the things that was said at our facility committee is the board's kind of answered the where question. I can tell you where the school is going to be built. I just can't tell you the when and the how. But I'm pretty sure the commitment we made was it's going to be built in that Hively Island. And so, the board had spent time multiple times looking at different sites. It wasn't as public because, if I'm looking at the Darren Svensson land and Darren reads that in the paper, then the price goes up. So you can have discussions in closed sessions about potential spots for the land you want to build, like we did when we bought the Hively Island, just because you don't want to drive up the price up. And even though we were buying it from the city, we knew that might drive up other prices for the city as well.
That's what's on my Microsoft Word document. Anything else up your sleeve? Anything else you want to touch on? As long as you got the forum this morning.
Boy, I don't. I suppose one of the big things the governor has made an emphasis to. She had a proposal that did some dramatic reforms for the local area education associations, or AEAs. There's been a lot of talk about that, a lot of community forums. I would say, just in general, looking at this, there's money that comes to districts, and it's always flowed through. Like, you get it, but then you pass it on to the AEAs. And so larger school districts, more urban school districts are many of those districts are looking at this as, oh, if I could just keep all that money, I could buy those services, and I could be at least as efficient and maybe save some money than the AAs. It does not benefit, in my opinion, small rural districts. So Decorah, I think we would be okay because we're a large enough district, but just understand that I support, looking at it on a less aggressive timeline, rather than maybe a 2-month timeline. Now we've seen a 2-year timeline, and I could support that and looking at it. But I also, one of the things that I think people need to realize is there's lots of times that the AAs, you buy a service from the AEA, and maybe you pay for 10% of a deaf or hard of hearing teacher that you don't need to use, but you're part of a consortium or you're part of a group buy, and they get somebody hired so that if you need them, they're there. And so if the AEAs dramatically change or something, you're going to have to see local districts come together and do a lot of consortiums. And so that's going to be a challenge. And I don't know if everybody realizes that. As an example, we have a food purchasing agreement with the AEA where they line up all the bids and the contracts. And if the AEA stops doing that, then we're gonna have to get together with other districts and get a food buying consortium. So I would just say a slower timeline I could support in looking at it, and maybe include some more school people. And I'm encouraged that they talk about having the boards include school district superintendents or school district personnel. So I don't know what'll happen, but I just I fear for small rural Iowa if the AEAs go away or change dramatically.
And I'm assuming those consortiums would be similar to what you have in the AEAs, right?
Yeah, I think you'll reconstruct a lot of the AEA stuff. So there's parts that there's no perfect answer. And I tell people, I think when it first came out, I was with a district leadership group, and they were kind of surprised that anybody in schools would say that we could survive without the AEAs. And I kind of pointed out that large school districts would be more likely to be in favor. And I knew from growing up that when my dad was superintendent in Iowa City, that was one of his things. He wanted just to keep his flow through money and operate. And that was 1980. So understand that we just have to be careful, because if it might work for the bigger districts, but we have to make sure that we're looking out for small rural Iowa. But yeah, to your point, we may reconstruct a lot of what the AEA does through a consortium. So we just have to be careful with all that.
Tim, appreciate the time and the knowledge as always. Look forward to our next month's conversation in the month of April. I'm sure we'll have many other interesting subjects to discuss at that time. And as always, go Cubs.
Yeah, there you go. Let's end that way.
All right. Tim Cronin.
Give the people what they want.
Exactly. Tim Cronin, Superintendent of Schools in the Decorah School District. Among talk to our guest on the program this morning, Trevor Thomas with the Decorah Police Department, a special traffic enforcement program in effect until Sunday in correlation with St. Patrick's Day. Also want to thank Mandy Halverson from the Waukon Chamber. St. Patrick's Day celebration, big parade starts at 1 o'clock on Sunday. All sorts of other activities going on as well. And we always get informed, maybe even entertained a little bit when we have a conversation with Tim Cronin, the Decorah Schools Superintendent. We appreciate him with his monthly check-in. Don't forget, we put these shows on YouTube every week. We realize you're busy, can't always be near the smart speaker or a radio or any sort of listening device at 9 o'clock on a Thursday morning, but we have the opportunity to talk to interesting people, entertaining people, and informative people. And we want to bring these interviews to you on your schedule. If you're out exploring things on YouTube, go to 3-14 Our Town program. That's a great way to do it. We also put the links up on our Facebook pages of all of our LA communication radio stations, and that's another way we connect with you to the best of our ability here at LA Communications. Thanks to our sponsor, Decorah Bank and Trust. Thanks to our guest. And lastly, and most importantly, we thank you, that's right, you, for tuning in, for logging on, or for watching Our Town on 94.9 and 99.1 The River.